Hey Grace, it's Pastor Drew here. I'm here with 5 reasons to come to church this Sunday. But before I mention those 5, I have 4 ways in which I think God is blessing the church right now that I want to tell you about. So here's number 1. Number 1, we are seeing more of you in worship than we have since the pandemic. And I'm really glad about that. It's been great to have you both in person and online, especially in person though. We've seen folks that have been away for a long time starting to come back, and it's great to see your faces. It's a joy to be with you. And it's great to see those worship numbers coming back because it means people are feeling safe to come back and feeling like they want to be back in the community to worship God with us. So I'm thrilled about that. I talked to one family that said they were out for a walk and they knew that it was time to come back. So if that's you too, you're invited. But I just want you to know that we're celebrating that God is blessing us by bringing the group back together and sending us new folks for worship. Number 2, I think God is blessing us through our new engagement hour. That's what I'm hearing from you. There are folks that had not had a Sunday school class for a long time that are now in a brand new Sunday school class and being fed by Christian community there. People know their name, care about them, pray for them, and together they encounter grace, they encounter God through study, conversation, and a beautiful time together. I've also heard that engagement hour is a blessing for folks that get to do our mission project every Sunday, and even for folks that get to do nothing during that 10 o'clock hour. My wife is somebody who got to drop the kids off at Sunday school and sit, have a cup of coffee, and just chat with a friend during that engagement hour. I'm so glad that that new 10 o'clock hour at Grace has been a blessing. If you haven't gotten to be a part of engagement hour, you're invited. A third way I see that God is blessing us right now is the relaunch of so many of our ministries that happen outside of Sunday. I don't have time to mention them all. I will just mention one. Our ESL class has done an amazing job with spreading the word that this resource is here, a way for Grace to offer grace and reflect the love of God to our community. And our ESL class is also reaching back to its pre-pandemic numbers in enrollment. We've seen the classes almost double since the beginning of this program year. So I'm thrilled that Grace is able to offer ministry like that, even outside of Sunday, especially to our community and our neighbors in need. One last way I want to mention that God is blessing Grace right now is through our Exploring Membership class. I had an experience at our last Exploring Membership class that I want to tell you about. This is the class where folks that are considering making Grace their church home, considering becoming members of the church, come to figure out what that's going to be like. But we always start that class by first hearing stories around the room. And I'm here to tell you, we heard amazing stories around the room. There's incredible diversity around the room on that day. Racial diversity, generational diversity, socioeconomic diversity, and diversity in their experience with church. Some of them have been a part of church for their whole lives. Some of them have never been a part of a church, but they found their way to Grace. And all of them are considering becoming members here, contributing members through their prayers, presence, gift, service, and witness, becoming members of Grace and helping its ministry succeed, helping us meet our mission. But the thing that was the biggest blessing was when I got to listen to them talk about what led them to Grace. Around the room, what we heard over and over is that people knew that God had led them to Grace. It wasn't just that Grace was a welcoming church, that we have a good and safe and strong children's ministry. It wasn't just the stuff that we do in the community. Folks were saying, God led me to Grace. God convinced me that it was time for me to find a church. And I made my way to Grace, and it's been a blessing. It is so good to hear that because it reminds us that this is not about us, that this church, this ministry that we offer is something that God is doing in the world, and we get to be a part of it. So I wanted you to know that God is blessing us, blessing the church, and blessing our community through the church. I want to celebrate that with you, and I want to thank you for all the ways that you're a part of that. Now, here's 5 reasons you ought to come to church on this Sunday. Reason number 1, you may remember last year around this time we had a campaign to raise a bunch of money for a number of important projects. You all raised $500,000 in 6 weeks. It was amazing. Your extravagant generosity has made a huge difference, and this Sunday we are going to give a report on all 5 of those projects. So come to church on Sunday and hear about the amazing ministry you made possible through that Unto All Generations campaign. Reason number 2 to come to church is engagement hour. All those classes that I mentioned, they're all open to new folks, and a new class starts this week. That's one I'm teaching. It's part of a series called Pastor Class, and this first class is Bible 101. And I want you to know that that's available to you. You can go to any of the other classes. My feelings will not be hurt. But if you're interested in learning some Bible basics, particularly in the United Methodist tradition. Come to that class, Bible 101 at 10 o'clock on Sunday. Number three, the third reason you ought to come to church on Sunday is that right after the 11 o'clock service, we're going to have church chat. We do it on the first Sunday of just about every month, and it's a chance for you to sit down with the pastors and a couple of the members of our board to hear a report about some of the back of the house stuff going on in the church and to chat about anything you want to. Ask any question you want so that we can make sure that you've got the information you need in order to be a part of the ministry of the church. Number four, the fourth reason you ought to come to church Sunday is what's happening after church and after church chat. We are being offered a free lunch, my friends. Not here at Grace, but at the Manassas Church of the Brethren, just down the road. That church is celebrating World Communion Sunday this Sunday, as will we, and they're inviting us to join their celebration. They're going to offer us lunch along with churches from around Manassas. So this is one of those interfaith gatherings that you all have been wanting to do more of. We're invited to be there at 12:30 for lunch and then stick around for a traditional Brethren foot washing. You can choose to just observe it, or you can choose to be a part of it with people from all these different traditions, washing each other's feet as Jesus instructed his disciples to do. Again, that's right after church at 12:30 on Sunday at Manassas Church of the Brethren. But here's the fifth and final reason you ought to come to church on Sunday, and that's because it is World Communion Sunday. It's Communion Sunday, first of all. World Communion Sunday, second of all. It's a chance to come, and before we are served a free lunch, to be served free grace. In fact, here at Grace, we're even going to try a new kind of bread. Our favorite Hawaiian bread is out of stock and out of production. We've tried pita, and you guys have told me you do not like the pita, and so we are trying something different. We're actually trying a new loaf of bread, which one of our church members is going to try to bake for us. That's a gluten-free loaf that looks like, tastes like, and feels like bread. It's going to be one loaf that everybody in the room can eat. That's a way for us to recognize Communion Sunday, and most of all, it's a way for us to receive the gift of grace in bread and cup from Jesus Christ, our Savior. That's the number one reason you ought to come to church on Sunday, is because Jesus has invited you, and he bids you to come so he can feed you with his love and with his grace. Thanks for listening to all of this. I can't wait to see you soon. God bless you, and may God continue to bless Grace United Methodist Church. Bye-bye.